Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Kris Ashley, and I'm so excited for my guest today. We are going to talk about money mindset and a whole lot of other things. We were just talking in the green room. We're on the same wavelength about a lot of stuff. First, a couple of quick announcements. Head over to the links in the show notes. You are going to find a wealth of information. You will find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by Bob Doyle, Marcy Shimoff, Michael Beckwith, all of whom were in The Secret. You will also find ways to sponsor the podcast, to connect on social media, to connect to my amazing guest. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. Sounds kind of weird that a newspaper has a podcast network, but we are doing massive things in the personal development realm. We have events in person and virtually almost every month now, spearheaded by Tony Robbins, former executive vice president of production. I just shared the stage with Les Brown, Joseph McClendon, Dr. Joe Vitale. So amazing things are happening. Stay connected. What if the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think? Welcome to Change Your Mind with Kris Ashley, the podcast where science meets spirituality and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Kris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do the same. Each week, we explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, awaken to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. All right, with me today, I have Meghan O'Rourke. So Meghan is a former clothing store owner and entrepreneur and model, and she worked her ass off to educate people and herself, or to educate herself and help people. She's now a FINRA securities licensed, highly skilled, and experienced business manager and bookkeeper to some of today's top celebrities, social media stars, and business owners. She has a corporate career in wealth management, and she is a go-to woman in a male-dominated industry and gives tips to people on social media on how to simplify their finances. Aside from money management, she is a very spiritual person, which is why she's a perfect fit for the podcast today. She calls herself a fairy, so does her fiance. Welcome, Meghan. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to learn all about money mindset and wherever we end up going today. We were just saying that's the best thing about these conversations is we never know where they're going to go, and those are the best kind because I always end up with a lot of really good takeaways. But
Agreed.
I would start all my shows the same way, and that is by asking my guests what their origin story is. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what led you down this journey of helping other people with their money mindset.
Oh, such a loaded question. And I know that you and I have already spoke a little bit about this and can relate, but eventually I'll kind of tell you how I got started, but it did lead to a spiritual awakening, which ultimately brought me here and this beautiful life that I have today. But I was a business owner. I owned 2 women's clothing boutiques here in the Nashville area for about 10 years. And I had the unexpected but well-welcomed opportunity to actually sell out of my boutiques. And of course, COVID hit during that time as well. So I I was just in pure shock because I thought that that was what I was going to do forever. I, had this whole plan to own multiple boutiques all over the state of Tennessee, and that didn't pan out. And at the same time, I also was ending a 10-year relationship slash 2-year engagement. So a lot of changes happening in my life, and ultimately just ended it all, moved out with literally just a suitcase. I had just sold one of my boutiques, closed the other, and here I was in my early 30s having to completely start over my life. And I went through a mass spiritual awakening at that point. And I did actually managed my own books, records, and everything for those 10 years. And I was always fascinated by finances. And so it was really just a natural next progression with where my career should go. I did take, a couple of months off just to truly figure that out. But I also have, my mother's in the industry in wealth management. So it ultimately led me down that path. But I'm really fascinated by the industry because I kind of have an unconventional career path of where I went, working for myself into very much so corporate America. I work at one of the largest global wealth managers. And I like to bring a fresh new perspective of what I've learned through my spiritual awakening and spirituality in general in terms of how to treat people and how people think about their money mindset. And I told you, I talk to people on a daily basis from people that have a $15,000 net worth all the way up to a $30 million plus net worth. And I'm even around billionaires as well. So very large scale of diverse types of clients that I deal with, I engage with, and it's fascinating. I learn from them every single day. But ultimately, my spiritual awakening did help cultivate the person that I am today, the way that I respond to people, and my fascination with just continuing to learn about numbers and money and energetics of money and how money and motion just really feeds the economy and ultimately feeds us as humans. And so a very unconventional career path, but I do, like to embed the spirituality with the corporate, which is very unconventional, I feel like, especially in today's world.
Yeah, totally. Thanks so much for sharing your story. It's funny, like things fall apart so other things can fall into place, right? And as someone who also sold a business, I'm like, hell yeah, girl, because I sold a yoga company. It's so few, especially women entrepreneurs. Like the amount that actually sell out is like very, very tiny. So I love that you were able to. That's so badass. Okay, so you mentioned a phrase that I totally just jotted down in my notes, and that is energetics in money. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. Like because everything's energy, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, like we're energy, money is energy, and people kind of have this like negative view of money, but it's all energy. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. Like, what are the energetics of money?
Yeah, so I always say, I ultimately kind of what got me into this industry as well is my infatuation with money. And it's just kind of like therapist ends up being a therapist because they're infatuated with figuring out how to heal themselves, which is a really beautiful thing. So when I was actually getting my certified holistic health coaching license through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, actually one of the biggest components of the overall piece of pie was finances. And we actually had a certified financial planner come and talk to us and about the energetics that we have and how it actually physically manifests in the body based off of our thoughts around money and our limiting beliefs around money. And just think about the word budget, for instance, and where you physically feel that in your body. You can actually feel your body tense up whenever you think about that limiting word, right? And so whenever we're talking about a holistic financial plan for somebody, I really sit there and I try to use more high vibrational words to help them not feel so confined and restricted when we're talking about creating a financial plan. I think it's really fascinating that money is just energy, as you and I mentioned. It's just like, this cup that I'm holding, like it's energy. It's just another thing. Yet we put so much energy into it, and we give it so much energy, and it's not good or bad. It just is. But I think that a lot of people think about it in such a negative context and that it does horrible things. And so I'm really trying to change that narrative around it. Money is a really beautiful thing, and let's normalize the conversation around it and your energy towards it, because it's so taboo. Like, we're told to never talk about money. And when you're told not to talk about something, that too feels restricting in the body, when again, it's just energy. So we got to amplify that energy, make it feel good to talk about, and not something that we should like stray away from. We need to normalize having these conversations with our friends and how to create more abundance in our life and more opportunity, and overall just give money the, I guess, the energetics that it does deserve. But once you align with that frequency, as you mentioned, it does start to flow into your life through the path of effortless ease and multiple revenue sources. And that's why it's really cool to start talking to those billionaires, because they study, law of attraction, energetics, and their energy towards money is very awesome to learn from and very encouraging.
Totally. So, okay, so you said we give it so much energy. So is it better to give it more energy or less energy? Because there's also that idea of like what you resist persists, right? So, and we also want to align with the frequency of it. So how do you go about doing that?
So money is just a tool, right? So especially when it comes to manifesting more money into your life or attracting more money, I always tell clients that it's not the overall objective of what we're trying to manifest. It's the tool to ultimately get us to where we're trying to be or what we're trying to manifest. For instance, like, if you want that six-figure job, well, it's not really that you want that six-figure job. You probably want the opportunity to travel more, or buy more gifts for your friends and family. So whenever we talk about what we really want, I'm always, why, like, tell me more, let's get to the root of it. But money is really just that tool to get there. So especially when it comes to manifesting, yesterday was the 1111 portal, as we were just talking about, and I was doing my journal prompts. And in the past, the old me, the money obsessed yet very restrictive, and I was probably at my lowest point financially. I was always like, oh, thank you, universe, for the $100,000 that's coming my way. And it was just all about the money, which felt really icky and just not authentically me. Whereas now, when I'm having conversations with clients, I'm like, what is the end goal here? Like, when we're talking about retirement planning, what do you want to be able to do in retirement? The trips that you want to take, the grandchildren that you want to go see, how far do they live from you? And then money is invested because it's that tool and that resource to get you there. But we're not like, oh, we need this set amount of, we need $500,000 to do so, because we'll welcome more than that. Like, that also is you're putting a limitation on yourself, where that's a baseline level. And we need to completely change that and be like, we welcome more than $500,000. We welcome whatever wants to flow into our life. So I really like to just think about it as a tool to get you to your end needs, and not money being the end goal ultimately.
Absolutely. And it's also like a representation, right? It can represent like freedom or shame or empowerment or adventure or safety, right? Whatever it is that you align with. So you said that you used to like do these journaling prompts. What was it that made you finally shift how you were looking at money? Was it taking that course, or did something like specifically happen?
Ooh, girl, that is, I have done a lot of shadow work. I'm still doing that always, because I'm still not where I want to be, but I've come such a long way. And my relationship with money started out not on the best course. I was in a situation, in a relationship where I kind of felt like my net worth was my self-worth. And it took a long time to come out of that, and doing all the journal prompts and realizing that I have so much more to give to this world and this universe. And I try to be a light beam for as many people as I can. And that has it's invaluable. It's there's so much value to the type of just energy that you bring to a room and the love that you share with people. And so it was a lot of just free writing. Like I would sit down and start to manifest and be like, thank you for, however amount of money. And then all of a sudden I would just be like, like I just would free flow and just talk about all the other things that I have to give and all the other areas of abundance in my life besides money. And then once I eventually got there, I mean, it comes in through the craziest of avenues. And when I restarted my career in finance, I actually very quickly progressed to where I am today, which I still sometimes sit here and I'm like, whoa, like I'm in the corner office right now in a matter of 2 years. And how did I get here? And it's still, it's like a pinch me moment sometimes. But that was because I just really committed to, the opportunity of what's meant for me will find me, but also committing to consistent learning and just always putting out there, like I'm in the right place at the right time with the right people, places, and opportunities, and my authenticity shines bright. But it's just not being money hungry ultimately. Like, yes, I want to do better for my family and provide more for my family, but I really had my eye on the ultimate goal and role that I want to be able to provide and the resources I want to be able to provide for clients. And then, the money followed.
Yeah, and
So I hope
it
that answers your
sounds like it's
question.
also that like service mindset, right? It's not all about you. It's about like how can I serve other people and how can I help my family or my clients? And I think that has a big part in it too, right? Like our intention behind something. The universe feels
Absolutely.
that, right?
Intention is everything. And it's funny. I was listening to I think it was a podcast this morning or a book. I listen to the Headway, just like the book recaps every morning too when I'm getting ready, and a lot of them are money books and mindset and everything. But one of the ones that I listened to was talking about the energetics around money, but also around anything is it's not just the receiving energy. Money has a giving and receiving energy. And I was the world's worst receiver. When I met my now fiance, his love language is gift giving and he loves to spoil. And I was so awkward with receiving to the point where, like, I remember one time on my birthday, my friend was Zach put, these fireworks up for me and everything. We had just started dating. It was so cute. And I had never received anything like that in my life, much less even a birthday party thrown for me and my friends. And I just sat there and my friend was like, you look like upset, like you're so awkward, like just receive. And that's when it hit me that I truly don't know how to receive. And so I had to work extensively on that. I love to give. Like whenever I have abundance in any regard, I love to share that abundance with those around me. But it's not just about that. It's also being able to receive, which takes consistent groundwork. But you have to have both sides for a perfect yin and yang and a balance to truly be able to thrive.
That makes sense. And I bet a lot of people relate to that for sure. Like sometimes it's really hard for people to practice self-care or accept gifts or have the attention on them, right? They're so much better at like spreading out the love. But yeah, I love that. Like there's an energy in giving and taking, and it's all this karmic balance.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
so yeah, go ahead.
Think about, I mean, I have a lot of friends that have, very young kids right now, and they tell me how they feel so bad for even taking a shower and I'm like, the more time that you take for yourself, the better
Yeah,
mother you're going to be.
yeah.
Like you have to take that time to recharge, to be a better wife, to be a better mother, and, have somebody that your kids want to look up to instead of just being dead tired. And I'm all about self-care, and I think it just makes you show up better in every regard of your life.
Yeah, I have a 9.5-month-old and I don't relate to those people at all. I'm like, if he sees me practicing self-care, that's like gonna show him how important self-care is, that he needs to take care of himself, right? Like you have to model for kids. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone
Absolutely.
who's listening, like, please, like, take care of yourself as well. Okay, so let's talk about like commonalities of abundant people, because you work with, this wide range of clients, but like the ones who are truly abundant, what are some traits that you see in them?
Again, I work with just such a wide variety of people, but I would say by naturally being around, very, very abundantly financial people, I would say that they're never super busy. So I think that there's this whole idea out there that we have to put in the grind and work. And when I see the people that actually are truly thriving in this world, one, they want their money working for them in every regard. So, while I can't give financial advice, it drives me crazy when I see a very large amount of money sitting in a checking account earning nothing.
Yeah.
I always say, have 3 to 6 months max in your checking account for an emergency. Outside of that, like, invest it, get that money working for you, because believe it, like, that's investing truly is what makes more millionaires than anything. Just that natural compounding effect. So that's one thing. It's just always thinking about how their money could be making money, and it's never I have to trade my time for money mindset. It's always, they want to stay being able to choose their schedule, have leisure, have control over their full schedule, because truly that is freedom. And to me, that's financial freedom. I don't know what your version of financial freedom is, but my version would be doing what I want, when I want, with who I want, at any time, and just, letting my money make money and just living life. I mean, that's the true definition to myself, and I think a lot of people. But there's also no scarcity mindset. So it's, and that kind of goes back to those limiting beliefs. They truly think that they can do anything that they put them. Like, if they have an idea, like, my fiance is just so fascinating to watch in this regard. He thinks of something and he just does it. Instead, a limiting mindset is going to make you sit there and overthink it, write a pro and con list, and by the time you've already thought about it, that other person's out there already just trying it and not afraid to fail. And that is something that it's all inspiring to watch those people and just like have them have the confidence, just go out and just do it. I still learning from them in that regard, because I'm the technical analyst behind the scenes, just being like, okay, well, is this worth the investment? How much time is this gonna take up for me to actually be able to enjoy this or reap the benefit of it? And so they just act, which is really cool to watch. And they just don't think that, anything, like, they're optimists. They look for all the good situations that could come of a situation, which I love too. They don't think about worst case scenarios, especially in my industry. That's few and far between, because especially with everything going on with the stock market and how quickly that can change, and the political landscape and everything, people are very fearful. And so to not live your life according to any sort of, news channel or index, or, watching the stock market rise and fall by the day, just really setting yourself up for success, and just whatever happens, you'll be okay at the end of it is another big trait of them.
I love that. And like, as you're talking about these, I'm like, those are such principles that I like to live by. And like, talk about your fiance, like, my husband is that way too. And yes to investing, and not like watching it. Yeah. And not getting sucked in the fear. It's like, put it there, let it do its thing. Like, I don't know, right now, like, Bitcoin's amazing and we're looking at it, we're like, holy shit, we just made so much money. But it's like, do we touch it? Like, no, like, just leave it there. Just let it keep going, because it's going to keep going. And I think that that's so important what you touched on, because there's a lot of people who have this scarcity mindset, but we could even call it like fear. So how do you help someone like move from that fear mindset? Like maybe someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, I want to be that way, but I have these like I was raised to say like money doesn't grow on trees, or like I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or like how do you get someone out of that mindset?
Yeah, and that's something that comes up all the time because, especially our generation, I'm a millennial, and I mean, it was absolutely a limiting mentality. And so I think that that's why I'm so passionate about financial literacy, particularly in women. I think that more
Mm.
women need to understand that money is not that complicated and investing is not that complicated, and it's a long haul play. And I mean, obviously the history is not a representation of future performance and you can't base it off of that. But if you do look at it, it's typically a pretty good outcome. So I learned way too late, and I just wish that I could go back and be like, learning finance is so cool, and not to mention the pure confidence that comes with it, and just your everyday eloquence in your conversations that you're having. Like, you kind of feel like a badass whenever you know what you're talking about, especially when it comes from a financial literacy component, because that goes into every other aspect of your life. And it's very empowering, even as a woman, even if you don't have a job, say you're the stay-at-home wife, which is absolutely a job, by the way. But if you at least are familiar with your family's finances and how know the inner workings and the operations, that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's just something that we need to have more conversations around. But a lot of women are afraid to even bring it up to their husbands or ask about finances in fear of
Mm.
not sounding intelligent around it. So it really just starts with just normalizing it. And I always say the first step to normalizing your finances is getting comfortable and familiar with your finances, no matter where you sit. So if your checking account is negative right now, I know that that is the last thing that you want to do is open your bank account. But how are we going to fix it? We have to get comfortable with it. We have to normalize checking our bank account and saying, you know what, we have an action plan in place. We're going to get better with money moving forward. Maybe we've been a little irresponsible with it up to this point. That's okay. We can move past that. But the only way to do that is to start to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that typically starts with literally just opening your bank account and just seeing where your accounts sit. Because a lot of people just, would rather go the avoidance channel because it's the easiest channel. But once you start to get comfortable with it and just remember that it's energy, and, start to give it a loving and nourishing energy, it's going to start to grow and prosper. And I mean, it is the currency for which abundance is brought. Like, money flows like water. It flows into our ecosystem and nourishes all of us for a better, life with our friends and family. So I literally think about like money flowing in my body and through my life, like the natural currency that it is to bring abundance into our life.
I want to unpack some of what you said, because I think from like a spiritual perspective and from like a very grounded, like here on 3D Earth perspective, like you touched on some really important things. And I think it's really true that a lot of women are not financially literate. And I think it totally stems from insecurity, or just, I don't know, maybe like embarrassment where they don't like know much about it. But like, okay, women, that's not an excuse. We live in a day and age where there's like a million YouTube videos, so many books. Like, I love Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. That's like a phenomenal book. And it's like a Bible, right? It's like so big, but there's so much out there. There's podcasts, there's experts on social media like yourself. And you're right, like this whole idea of like stocks can be really intimidating, but once you start, it's so simple.
So simple.
It's so easy. Um, and and it's fun. right? Like once you like pick a stock and you can kind of like see where it goes and like you kind of get into it, it can be a really exciting thing. I have to ask you, do you think you can beat the market by picking safe stocks, or is it always you always have to like find those outliers?
So this
My,
is
my
one of
and I'm just
those.
asking that because my husband and I were just talking about this the other day.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, I'm so highly regulated, so I have to be very careful. But
Hmm.
um, there's a couple of benchmarks that like the S&P 500, for instance, right? And personally, I mean, I'm 33, but I am I just like to make it easy. So I'm like fully invested in the S&P 500 because I'm like, that's the benchmark for which they use to try to outperform. And I've got time on on my side. I'm a healthy individual, and if the stock market tanks, I've got time to recover. Me personally, I'm all in on equities. I don't prefer to play it safe, but that's you know there's several phenomenal money managers and investment advisors out there that do really great things. So there's just so much analysts that go into analysis that goes into it that I can't really touch on, but I truly like to keep it simple. So I'm not going to say that you can outperform the market but honestly, this is fact is any outperformance typically is not by a long shot outperformance. And then underperformance is typically, far underperforming, on the
Mm.
other end of it. So to me, it all balances out. Again, this is not financial advice. I do have to put that out there.
Nope,
But
we
I
don't want to
think
get
that
you in
that's
trouble.
where, yeah, I think that's where the over complication comes into play here is when people start throwing out these large finance jargon terms, and that's what really intimidates people. And so I like to just come back down to earth and just be like, you know what? It's really simple. We've got a mix of stocks and they have target date funds out there that literally do it all for you. You say when you plan on retiring, and it will just automatically allocate and in proportion to how old you are and when you plan on retiring. So there's so many easy, just automated systems out there. And you can even automate, everything being pulled directly from your paycheck and not even getting to your checking account and it just automatically being invested, which I'm a huge proponent of because let's be
And
honest,
you
like
don't see
I'm a
it.
girl. Yeah, I'm a girl, and the second that thing is in my checking account, it's
Yeah,
I like to shop, so I like to automate everything and just make sure it's out of my account before it even gets in my hands.
totally. Okay, thanks for that. I know I don't want to get you in trouble. Because I've heard so many things. It's like, don't just like put it in the hands of a money manager. Like, uh, whatever. We don't have to go there. We'll keep it simple for the sake of simplicity. But okay, so I want to talk about the more spiritual side. So you said you like to give it a loving energy and flow. Imagine it flowing through you like currency. So is there like a specific meditation or like a specific journaling, or what's like a good place for someone to start if they're like, I have this weird relationship with money. I have this weird view of money. I want to be able to think about money like Meghan. Like, what's a good little like tool that someone could take away?
So I like to just initially start out with journaling. And I know that not a lot of people are journaling, but even if it's speaking into your notes app or honestly, Chat GPT can be your best friend. It's wild. Like
It's
sometimes
amazing.
the other day, I was laying in bed and I like to just get my thoughts out on a piece of paper or anywhere before I go to bed, or else it will drive me crazy. And I wrote down all these thoughts that had been running through my mind when I was in the shower into Chat GPT. And I was like, write me a diary entry around all these thoughts. And what it came up with was, I was like, I feel like I just went to 3 hours of therapy. Like it was crazy. It was
That's fun.
amazing. So just figuring out, why you have money blocks. So write down, how you've been able to generate money, where that money has gone, and see how it's just excessively flowing out. But it typically is something trauma related as to where it's rooted and where that emotional attachment, whether it be healthy or unhealthy, is coming from with money. So just again, writing it down and then getting familiar with your accounts. Like there's a Rocket Money app that I think is so so great and so fascinating. It shows you exactly your monthly breakdown of where all your assets are going, so that it just puts together a perfect little pie chart. And you're like, wow, I spent a lot of money going out this month. But just familiarizing yourself from that standpoint. Because oftentimes it's not necessarily that you have a lack of mindset. It's just that we're being a little more irresponsible than we actually think that we're being with money. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of just familiarity, just constantly, know where things are going, and how much you're bringing in. From there, from the meditation standpoint, huge advocate of meditation. And I know that you and I were talking about the science behind it. And I mean, it really does. There's plenty of science out there, as you know, but that it creates new neural pathways in your mind. And I literally think about it as, money just flowing through me like water does. But the other end of that is because money is the currency. It flows like water. I love to relate it to water because I think that all of the terminology around money actually did come from water. Think about like a river bank, if you're liquid or e-liquid.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's a lot of information out there on that. I won't dive into that right now. But it's the currency that really does nourish us, right? And it's just like how a water must flow through, to get to like the inner workings of the United States, or else if they didn't have running water, then they wouldn't be an abundant area to live. So it has to keep flowing into our ecosystem. So whenever you do receive money, you can't be fearful to spend it, and you can't be having that lack mindset, or else it's not going to continue to flow. Like money needs to be in consistent flow. So that's why it's so funny to me too. I love to see people that, do have an abundance of money. I love to see them out spending it however they want. If everything else is taken care of, I love to see them flourishing and nourishing our ecosystem. Like people are like, oh, how can he go out and spend, $30,000 at a bar and buy a table? And well, if he is financially set up and everything is in place and he has that type of disposable income, I think that's amazing, because he's out there having fun, or she is out there having fun, and your version of fun doesn't have to be that, but and then they're helping to supply the lifestyle of the server, who ultimately probably has a family at home, and they're tipping them a nice amount, and then they get to go home and have an income stream for their family. So I love to see people spending money that have it. I think it's a beautiful thing. And that's your other thing, is this whole reality, this whole life is a mirror. So if you were uncomfortable seeing somebody spend money, you got some work to do. It should be a fun thing. You should be like, oh my gosh, I am so excited for that to come into my life and my reality. Because if you feel any sort of hate towards it, that's just your subconscious limiting beliefs coming out and showing their true colors. And so we need to work on that.
I've never heard anyone say it like that, and I love that so much. Especially because, like, you're right, like everything you've been talking about supports that, like how it's an energy and there's giving and receiving and it flows in and it flows out. And it's like, if you like cut off that flow by like hoarding it, like it's like it gets stopped up, right? Like it's a bottleneck, right?
It's stagnant.
There's no flow happening. And like, who wants to, like, I get like leaving money for your kids is one thing, but like, who wants to like die with like millions in the bank, right? It's like, you want to live your life. We are here to have human experiences, and for better or for worse, money is a tool that we have in this 3D world right now at this moment in time, and it allows you to go have experiences on this planet. So I appreciate that. So, okay, you started this whole conversation off by saying, like, how does the word budget make you feel, and where do you feel that in your body? So, how do we balance this idea of, something like that feeling really bad and facing that kind of shames, maybe depending on your situation, of like looking in your bank account, which I've been there when you were talking about like you don't even want to look at it. Or like, how do we balance that with this idea of like letting it flow? Because just to play devil's advocate, I'm sure there's going to be some like internet troll listener that's like, well, I don't have money to like go spend, so like how am I going to like keep the flow going, right? So like how do we like navigate all of that, these like different ideas?
Yeah, and I mean that's such a good question. But it's not that you necessarily need more money. I will first and foremost say that until you get realistic with where your money is going, so getting that familiarity, you probably have more money than you even realize. But it's just been, you've been spending it in not the best of places. Now, that said, forgiveness comes into play too. I remember one time I spent a ridiculous amount of money on something that really didn't provide. It's an energy exchange, right? So like if you are spending money on something, it should provide a good feeling in you. And that also comes down to like the 3D, paying your taxes and paying bills. Like I had to change my mindset around, oh my gosh, like I can afford this water bill being this high because I have a hot tub and a pool. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, we had to heat the pool this month, and so our bill is astronomically high. I was like, I have the ability to have a hot tub and a pool to be able to heat my pool. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to do so. I'm happy to pay this bill. And whenever you approach everything with intention, as you mentioned, and gratitude, with I am grateful that I have the opportunity to pay for a mortgage. Most people right now, especially with everything going on, a mortgage, people would dream of having a mortgage, and yet we get to pay for a mortgage, which is amazing. So leading into gratitude and changing your perception around a situation is first and foremost. I don't care how much money you have in your bank account, you have to change your perception around everything. So that's what I would say. If you're out here internet trolling, then I mean, negativity is a very low vibrational state to be in the first place. So we got a lot of inner working to, start with from that standpoint, because you have like love, gratitude, all of that is just such a naturally higher vibration, which ultimately allows more abundance to come into your life. And I get it. That doesn't mean being happy every day. That just means, trying to find the good in every situation. And I mean, I don't love my job every day, but I try to find the good things, and being able to help one person, which makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm giving back and my job is worth it. So, finding the good in your financial position that you currently are in. Like if you have a running washing machine in your small little 1-bedroom apartment, well, you have a 1-bedroom apartment. Most of the world doesn't. So, just finding really getting down to the baseline and starting with gratitude there, I found that has been monumental in my large manifestational movements. I tell my fiance all the time that I've literally manifested him, because I did. But
Oh, totally.
it all came from a place of just being gratitude, being super specific on what I wanted, and leading with love, and then being grateful for the love that I did have in the time. So I guess that was a very long-winded answer of just coming back down to mindset, and being grateful for what you currently have flowing into your life, but also not being so obsessed over it, and watching your every dollar inflow and outflow is really crucial.
I thought it was a great answer. And, because we can say like mindset, 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 but like giving specific examples is so important. And it's that like shift in perspective versus like there's an energy that comes with like, oh, I have to pay this bill versus like I get to pay this bill because I have this privilege, right? Or like I have this amazing thing in my life. I have this hot tub, So I love that example. So, okay, so what happens like if someone's in a partnership and the other person is like very obsessed with the budget or just like very much like we can't spend this and like how do you recommend people navigate that situation? Because I know a lot of people who are like that in those kind of relationships too.
That's my own relationship. No, it's a beautiful thing. We both have learned
Opposites are good.
we are, but yeah, I'll just put my fiance on blast. When I first met my fiance, he is in a very financially blessed position. He's worked his tail off to get to where he is. I'm very proud of him. But he would spend pretty frivolously, and I just was like, that's not me. I like to spend with intention. I like gifts to have meaning. Like for I guess my stepdaughter, his daughter, I'm like, we're not just going to go out and buy tons of Barbies. We're going to buy intentional gifts that she can learn something from. And so it's amazing because, as Christmas is about to come around, he's like, I got her really intentional gifts, and he subconsciously said that because I've been subconsciously saying that, so it's been rubbing off on them. But I would say, continue to let the person be who they are. Don't ever, first and foremost, go into a relationship trying to change the person. And I realized that his love language, like I said, is giving gifts, so I've let him do that. Like if he wants to go to Walmart and spend $200 on random shit, I'm like, that's a you thing. You can do it. Have fun. I don't make him feel bad for it. I think that's what we have to, start out with first and foremost, is not making somebody feel bad for being who they are, unless you're getting into a really bad debt situation. Then of course we need to have a little bit more of a stern conversation. But also like sitting down and putting out your financial goals together, like being on the same page and saying, hey, we really want to take this trip this time next year. So that whenever you are consciously out there spending, you think about, is this worth, the money? Like, is this worth this experience right now? Or could this go towards our trip next year? But like, you have to be on the same page of that. And you have to have communication around it. But I will say from personal experience, like when you make somebody feel small or belittled about not knowing about finances, that does not help the situation either, because it's just going to continue to create those limiting beliefs and that sense of lack in that other person. So you have to come at it from a very loving energy and just saying, hey, honey, maybe like we've been spending a little bit too much this month, and not getting on their case and being like, you can't go out and spend that amount of money. Like, why would you ever spend $200 on your hair? Well, are you aware of how much hair costs these days? Because that's a discount.
Well, no one wants to be like married or in a relationship with like someone that's like their parent, right? Like
exactly.
That's yeah.
Yeah, and being a previous boutique owner, the amount of times that women were like, "Oh, let me go get some cash out so that I can, buy my clothes, hide this." Yes, which I mean,
oh my gosh.
I understand, to each their own, but I just think that being on the same page and never ever making somebody feel bad for telling you the truth. Like if somebody comes to you and they're like, I messed up, I spent way too much money here, or I got in debt or whatever, like you have to come at it from a loving way and not a demeaning manner, or else you're not going to get anywhere in your relationship.
I really appreciate that, like everything you've said today has had so much heart behind it, whether it's talking about like being of service or, not making people feel bad or making them empowered. And I just want to call that out because there's like so much compassion with the way that you speak and like thoughtfulness. And I think that in and of itself is like such a mindset that so many people could just learn just like from listening to you that like you're not even trying to teach right now. So I want to call that out. And then, as we're wrapping up, is there anything that like we didn't really touch on that you think is really important for listeners to take away today?
I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I always like to come back to, I know that we live in this three-dimensional world and money is everywhere. It's the talk of everything, yet our personal finances necessarily aren't. So I really want to encourage conversation amongst your friends. Like ask them what they're invested in their 401k, and do not ever be afraid to sound stupid, especially when it comes to, your conversations within your own personal home. I really empower conversation. And if a significant other or a friend or somebody does make you feel less than, then maybe reconsider, or come to them and just be honest and say, hey, that didn't make me feel good. I really am trying to learn. Like I would like to know and have an understanding, and just approach it from that manner. But we just need to normalize conversation around money mindset in general. And I think that so many people, far more than we know, really put their their self-worth and their net worth, and that's not true at all. You're not, just because you're the friend that doesn't make as much as everybody else does not mean that you're any less of a friend or a person. So I really want you to lead in with that heartfelt knowledge and understanding that you have so much more to give on this earthly plane than just monetary abundance. Abundance comes in all forms. So lead with love. Love is like the highest, love and authenticity are the highest vibrational states that we can ever offer. So lead with that type of abundance, and it'll take you far.
I love that. And you're making me think like, I don't have money conversations with friends really. So that's an interesting thing. Like my husband and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time, but it's not something and I'm like thinking as you're talking, like, why is that? And I think it's because I don't want anyone to feel bad or uncomfortable. But maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe like more open communication, like you said, is going to be helpful for all parties. So yeah, thanks.
And it can teach you something too. And not like, just to throw in one last thing, because it was something that came up today. Like in my current role, I come across a lot of accounts, and I came across, I think, like 3 accounts today of people that had SEP IRAs, and the money was not actually invested. It was just sitting there in cash. And those are really, really difficult conversations to have with the client when they thought that, the 3 to 5 years that they've been contributing to their IRA, that the money's been invested that whole time. So, if you have conversations with your friends and you're like, oh, what type of investment are you investing in your 401k, your solo 401k, your SEP IRA, your Roth IRA, and they go and look and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not actually invested. Like that can be a huge life-changing moment to realize that, your investments are not actually invested, or they're investing in something that, the market's up 20+% year to date, but yet you've only, you're say 30 years old and you're only up 3%. Well, let's look at what we're invested, because it should be a little bit closer in line to what the market performance is. So normalizing those kind of conversations. And it's really fun too, whenever you start to have those conversations.
So important. Yeah, I love that. Great tip. It has been such a pleasure to have you on, Meghan. I really appreciate your time. Is there any way that if someone wants to find you, I know you share a lot of tips on social media, like where do you live on the internet? And, if people want to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, certainly. So I do share more probably on TikTok than anything, but it's called The Money Why, WAI, is my Instagram and TikTok handle.
Awesome. And I will put that in the show notes as well. If you are listening, please send this to someone you think could use it. That's a great way to start those money conversations that Meghan was talking about. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you all next week. Have a beautiful rest of your day.